Wife got $1 million business offer and instantly threw out her lame husband. And the most painful part of this entire story is not the betrayal. It is the breakfast he made her every single morning before she even opened her eyes. Before we move on, tell me in the comments which state you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow's episode may touch a story that is still unfolding. 5:30 in the morning, Houston, Texas. The kind of dark that sits heavy on a neighborhood that is still waiting for its blessing. Darius moved through the small apartment the way water moves around stone, carefully, deliberately, without complaint. His left leg dragged slightly as he reached for his cane from the nightstand. He had done this 10,000 mornings. The movement was as natural to him as breathing. He did not wince. He did not sigh. He simply rose because someone in this home had to. The kitchen was tiny. Everything in their life was tiny. But Darius kept it clean because he believed that a man who respects his space respects himself. He lit the gas burner with a soft click and set the kettle on. Eggs in the pan, toast in the rack. He arranged everything on a tray the way a man arranges something for someone he genuinely loves, with attention, with care, with zero expectation of applause. Imani appeared in the doorway. She was beautiful even half asleep, wrapped in her robe, hair loose around her face. But her eyes were somewhere else entirely. They were always somewhere else these days. Darius smiled at her. "Good morning, baby, come eat." She sat, she scrolled her phone. The food steamed between them like a small, ignored miracle. Darius studied her face from across the table. There was something restless living inside his wife. He had been watching it grow for months. That quiet dissatisfaction, that hunger for a life bigger than the one they were currently building together in this Houston apartment with the leaky faucet and the second-hand couch. He reached across the table and covered her hand with his. She pulled away, gently, but she pulled away. "I need to get ready," she said. She stood and walked out of the kitchen. Darius sat alone with the untouched breakfast and the silence she left behind. He looked down at his leg, then at the door, then at nothing in particular. This is what an invisible husband looks like. Not dramatic, not loud, just a man sitting at a table, holding love that no longer has anywhere to land. He cleared the dishes. He washed the pan. He prepared himself for another day of working quietly from home, building something real from nothing, the way men with limited options learn to do. He did not know that morning that his wife was already mentally leaving him. He did not know that a phone call was coming that would end everything. He just washed the dishes and loved her anyway. The apartment felt smaller every evening. Darius had learned to feel it, that shift in the air, the moment Imani walked through the door after a long shift at the retail shop on Westthamer Road. The way she dropped her bag, the way she exhaled, it was not just tiredness. Tiredness was something you slept off. What Imani carried home every night was something deeper. It was resentment, and it had quietly taken up permanent residence in their marriage. "How was your day?" Darius asked, looking up from his laptop. She dropped onto the couch without answering. He closed the laptop and limped over to sit beside her. He had made dinner. The apartment smelled like jollof rice and grilled chicken because he had learned early in their marriage that a warm meal was one of the few things that could soften her edges after a hard day. She did not move toward the kitchen. "Imani," his voice was gentle, "talk to me." "I am tired, Darius." Her voice had no warmth in it. "I am tired of that job. I am tired of that manager. I am tired of working that hard for that little." "I hear you," he said. "My design contracts have been growing. In a few months, we could be in a very different place. You might not even need that job anymore." She turned and looked at him, really looked at him. And what crossed her face in that moment was not hope. It was something closer to pity. Her eyes moved to his cane leaning against the coffee table, then back to his face. "A few months," she repeated, like the words tasted wrong. "I am working every day, Imani. You know that." "I know," she stood up. "But working every day and actually moving forward are two completely different things." Darius was quiet. He let the words settle before he responded because he was a man who chose his reactions carefully. "We are moving forward together. That has always been the plan." She laughed, not warmly. "Your plan and my plan stopped matching a long time ago." That sentence hit him harder than she probably intended. Or maybe she intended it exactly that hard. She went to the bedroom. No dinner, no conversation, no softness. Darius sat alone in the living room, the smell of the meal he cooked filling the air around him like a question nobody was willing to answer. He pulled his laptop back open. He opened a new design project. He worked in silence. This is what a loyal husband in a quietly broken marriage looks like. Not screaming, not fighting, Just a man at a table, still building, still believing, while the woman he loves stands on the other side of a wall they both pretend is not there. The crack in their foundation was no longer small. The restaurant was the kind of place Imani had only ever seen through windows. Downtown Houston, marble floors, low lighting, the kind of quiet that only exists when everyone in the room has enough money to afford silence. Imani sat across from Regina Caldwell, a woman who wore success the way other women wore jewelry, effortlessly and with full intention. Regina was 52 years old and looked 40. She owned 4 high-end fashion boutiques across Texas and had her name printed on the kind of contracts most people only dreamed about. She had chosen this restaurant. She had chosen this table. She had chosen Imani. That choice alone made Imani sit up straighter. "I have been watching you for a while now," Regina said, setting her wine glass down with precision. "Not just your numbers, your instincts, the way you handle customers, the way you read a room. That is not something you can teach, baby. Either you have it or you do not." Imani felt heat rise in her chest. Nobody had spoken to her like this in years, like she was capable, like she was worth something real. Regina slid a document across the table. Clean, formal, real. "I am expanding. 3 new locations, Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio. I need an operational partner, someone young, hungry, and sharp enough to run the floor while I handle the big picture." She tapped the document. 50% ownership, business valued at $1 million. You put in the work, we split the reward. Imani looked down at the paper. Her hands were trembling and she pressed them flat against the table to hide it. "Why me?" she asked. Regina smiled. "Because you remind me of a younger version of myself. Talented woman, small life, waiting for someone to open a door." She leaned forward. "I am opening it. All you have to do is decide you are worth walking through." The words landed somewhere deep. Imani thought about the tiny Houston apartment, the leaky faucet, the second-hand couch, the man with the cane who made her breakfast every morning and called her his queen while she scrolled past him like he was background noise. She thought about all of it in the space of 3 seconds. Then she looked up at Regina. "I am in," she said. "No hesitation, no conditions, no mention of Darius." Regina nodded, satisfied. "We start Monday. The commitment is total. Travel, late nights, high-level client entertaining. Your old life will not survive this new one." She said it plainly, the way a surgeon describes a procedure. "Can you accept that?" Imani did not even blink. "Yes," she said, "completely." She meant every word. And somewhere across Houston, Darius was heating up the dinner she would never come home to eat. It was close to midnight when the apartment door opened. Darius had been awake for hours, not worried exactly, just present. That was the kind of husband he was. He did not demand explanations. He simply waited because waiting was another form of love he had learned to practice quietly. Imani walked in and she was glowing. That was the only word for it. Her eyes were alive in a way Darius had not seen in a long time, and his first instinct was relief. She was happy. Whatever had happened tonight had made his wife happy. That was enough for him. "Sit down," she said. "I have to tell you something." He sat. She paced. She told him everything. Regina, the partnership, the $1 million valuation, the 3 new locations, the future she had just been handed on a marble table in a downtown Houston restaurant. Darius listened without interrupting. When she finished, he stood up and reached for her. "Baby," he said, his voice thick with genuine joy. "This is everything we prayed for. This is your moment. I am so proud of you." She stepped back. Not far, just enough, but he felt it. "There is more," she said. Her voice had changed. Flattened slightly, the way a voice does when someone is building towards something they do not want to say out loud. "The life I am stepping into is fast, Darius. The people around me are going to be different. Wealthy, connected, high level." Darius nodded slowly. "Okay. I just need you to understand that things are going to change. Drastically. I understand that. I support you completely." She looked at him then, really looked at him. Her eyes moved just briefly, just barely, to his cane resting against the wall, then back to his face. "I just do not know if you fit into this new world," she said. The room went completely still. Darius did not raise his voice. He did not move. He simply looked at his wife and asked the quietest, most devastating question a husband can ask. "What does that mean?" She did not answer. She looked away, picked up her phone, and said she needed to get some sleep because she had an early call in the morning. She walked to the bedroom. He stood in the center of the living room, alone under the yellow light, processing what had just happened. His wife had been handed the life she always wanted, and in the same breath she had looked at him, the man who made her breakfast before sunrise, the man who believed in her through every small and struggling season, and quietly decided he was not part of the plan. He did not cry that night. He sat in the silence and felt the first real crack appear, not in the wall between them. In himself. It happened slowly. That is how the most painful things always happen. Not a single explosion, just 100 small disappearances, a hand pulled away, a glance withheld, a dinner eaten somewhere else with someone else for reasons that were never fully explained. Darius noticed everything. He always had. Imani was gone before 7 o'clock every morning now. No breakfast together, no conversation. She moved through their Houston apartment like a woman passing through a waiting room, present in body, already somewhere else in her mind. She came home late, some nights after 11 at night, some nights past midnight. She slid into bed on the far edge and turned away from him before he could even say welcome home. He cooked. She said she had already eaten. He asked about her day. She gave him 3 words or fewer. He reached for her hand on the couch one evening, and she moved it to her lap without explanation, without apology, without even looking up from her phone. One Tuesday evening, something in Darius finally refused to stay quiet. Imani, he stood in the center of the living room, his voice steady. "We need to talk." She looked up from her phone slowly, like a woman being interrupted from something more important. "I am right here," he said. "I have been right here, but you look through me like I am made of glass. I am building something, Darius. This is not the time for emotional conversations. Our marriage is not an emotional inconvenience," he said. "It is our life." She set her phone down, and what came next was not said in anger. It was said in that particular cold tone that is somehow worse than screaming because it carries no heat, only distance. "Honestly, sometimes I look around this apartment and I feel like I am stuck, and you are the thing I am stuck to." Silence. Darius looked at her for a long moment. "I have supported you every single day of this marriage. I clean, I cook, I work from this apartment through every setback, through my injury, through everything. You limp around this apartment, and you call that building a life." The words landed like a physical thing. His voice, when it came, was barely above a whisper. "I do not feel sorry for myself. I have never asked you to feel sorry for me. I just asked you to love me." She stood, picked up her coat, checked her phone. "Love is a beautiful word," she said, "but it does not build empires." She walked out the door. Darius stood in the middle of the room. The apartment that he kept clean, that he filled with cooked meals and quiet devotion, felt like an empty field. He sat down slowly on the couch. He did not cry, not yet. He simply sat there, a faithful man slowly becoming invisible inside his own home. And outside, the city of Houston moved forward without stopping to notice. It was a Saturday morning in October. The Houston sky was gray and flat. Darius was on the couch with his laptop open, working on a logo project for a client in Austin. The apartment was quiet, clean. His coffee was warm. For one brief moment, life felt manageable. Then the front door opened. Imani walked in, and she was not alone. Behind her stood a man Darius had never seen. Tall, expensive suit, the kind of confident that comes from never having worried about money. He looked around the small apartment the way certain people look at things that do not meet their standard, not with cruelty, but with a quiet, dismissive assessment. Darius stood slowly. "Imani, who is this?" "Marcus," she said, simply, like the name was sufficient. "My business partner." Marcus gave a short nod but said nothing. He stayed near the door. Darius looked between them. Something cold moved through his chest. "Why is he here?" Imani walked past him toward the bedroom. He followed, his cane tapping against the floor. She was already pulling a suitcase from the top shelf of the closet. She opened it on the bed and crossed to his side of the wardrobe. "Imani," his voice was low, controlled. "What are you doing?" "Helping you get organized," she said. She began placing his clothes into the suitcase, folded, efficient, practiced, like she had rehearsed this moment. "Organized for what?" he asked. She stopped, turned, and looked him directly in the eyes with an expression that had no apology anywhere in it. "I need you to leave this apartment, Darius." He heard the words. He understood each one individually. But together, in that order, in her voice, in their home, they made no sense at first. "This is our home," he said. "This apartment is in my name. I have been paying the rent for 6 months. Because I lost my primary client during the downturn, I am rebuilding." Too slowly, she turned back to the suitcase. "My life is accelerating now. I cannot have dead weight in my space." "Dead weight?" He said nothing for a moment. He simply stood there, a man absorbing something that should not be possible. "You are replacing me," he said. "I am choosing my future." In the doorway behind them, Marcus stood with his hands in his pockets, watching with the mild interest of a man who had seen this kind of scene before and felt nothing about it. Darius looked at this man, then back at his wife, then at the suitcase that held everything he owned. "Where am I supposed to go, Imani?" She zipped the suitcase and slid it toward him across the floor. "That is no longer my responsibility," she said. He picked up his cane. He picked up his suitcase. He walked out of the apartment he had helped build, past the man who had taken his place, and through the door that closed behind him with a sound so final it echoed inside his chest for days. The bench was in a small park near downtown Houston. Darius found it the way a man finds things when he has nowhere else to go, not by choosing it, but by simply stopping when his body could not carry him any further. He sat down. He set his suitcase beside him. He rested his cane against the armrest, and he stared at the ground for a very long time. The rain started around 9 o'clock at night. He did not move. People passed, umbrellas, headlights, the distant sound of a city that did not know he existed. He sat through it all, soaked to the bone, his suit jacket dark with water, his face turned toward the pavement like a man studying the exact geography of his own failure. This is what an abandoned husband looks like. Not violent, not dramatic, just a man on a bench in the rain, holding a suitcase full of clothes and a heart full of something there are no good words for. Morning came slowly, gray light over Houston, pigeons, a city coming back to life. A food cart appeared near the park entrance. The smell of something warm drifted toward the bench, coffee, fried dough, the small, ordinary comfort of food. The woman behind the cart was middle-aged, full-faced, wearing a yellow apron over a brown coat. Her name was Miss Nadine. She noticed him the way people with genuine hearts notice suffering, immediately, without looking away. She came over with a small paper cup of tea. No questions first, just the cup extended toward him. He took it because he had no energy left to refuse kindness. The warmth moved through his hands and up his arms, and for one small moment the numbness in his chest shifted. "You have been here since last night," she said, not accusing, just noting. He looked up at her, his eyes were hollow. "Yes. You have family somewhere." He thought of the apartment, the closed door, the man in the expensive suit. "No," he said. She studied him for a moment with the calm, reading gaze of a woman who had seen enough of life to recognize when a person had truly hit the bottom of something. "I have a small room behind my shop on Olmeda Road," she said. "It is not fancy, but it is dry and it is safe." She looked at him directly. "You can stay there while you figure out your next step." Darius looked at this woman, a stranger, a person with no obligation to him, no history with him, no reason on earth to offer him anything. "Why would you do that?" he asked. Miss Nadine tucked her hands into her apron pockets and shrugged like the answer was obvious. "Because somebody did it for me once, and it changed my life." She turned back toward her cart. "Come on before that cold settles into your lungs." Darius stood, he picked up his cane and his suitcase, and he followed her. Olmeda Road was not a glamorous street, but the small room behind Miss Nadine's soul food shop on Olmeda Road became the place where Darius Monroe rebuilt himself from the ground up. It smelled like cornbread and dish soap, and the faint trace of pine sol that Miss Nadine applied to every surface like a spiritual discipline. The room had a single window, a narrow bed, and a small desk. That desk became everything. He started designing again within the first week. Small projects at first, logo work, social media graphics, the kind of freelance jobs that did not pay much but kept the hands busy and reminded the mind of what it was capable of. He worked every night until 2 or 3 in the morning, the glow of his laptop screen the only light in the room. Miss Nadine woke him each morning at 6 o'clock for breakfast. She did not ask questions about his past. She fed him, put him to work helping with her cart, and treated him like a person who had a future worth preparing for. That alone, being treated like someone with a future, was medicine he had not known he needed. 3 weeks into his stay, Miss Nadine introduced him to her nephew, Jabari, a physiotherapist with a practice in Midtown Houston. Jabari assessed Darius's leg with the quiet focus of someone who takes his work seriously. "Your muscles are weak from years of compensating for one another," he said. "But there is no permanent damage here. With the right rehabilitation work, you could walk without that cane." Darius stared at him. "I have walked with this limp my entire adult life." "That does not mean it is permanent. It means it was never properly addressed." Something shifted in Darius's chest. Not hope exactly, something more fragile than hope, the possibility of hope. He started therapy 3 times a week. It was painful and slow, and there were days he wanted to quit. But he did not quit, because quitting was the old life. The new life required something different from him. Months passed, the cane became one crutch, the crutch became nothing. One morning in his 7th month on Almeda Road, Darius walked across the full length of Miss Nadine's shop without any assistance. Just him, his 2 feet, his rebuilt body. Miss Nadine pressed her hand to her mouth. Jabari smiled wide. Darius laughed, and the laugh surprised him because it came from somewhere genuine and deep. Meanwhile, his design business was transforming. A major Dallas-based brand discovered his portfolio online and offered him a long-term contract that changed his financial life overnight. He hired his first assistant, then a second. He moved into his own apartment in Midtown, then a larger space. His name began traveling in the right rooms. 2 years after sleeping on a park bench in the rain, Darius Monroe was a successful man walking tall through Dallas, Texas, with only the faintest trace of a limp, and a life that was entirely, completely his own. The office should have felt like a victory. It had all the things that were supposed to mean something: the large desk, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the view of the Dallas skyline that Imani had worked herself nearly to collapse to earn, the framed magazine feature on the credenza, the designer wardrobe, the title on the frosted glass door. But the office felt cold, and lately everything in Imani's life had begun to feel cold. She was sitting behind her desk on a Wednesday morning when Marcus walked in. He did not knock. He had not knocked in months. That shift in itself told a story she had been refusing to read. He dropped a folder on her desk. The Riverside location numbers came in. She opened the folder. The numbers were bad. She already knew they were going to be bad. She had known for weeks, in the way you know something is wrong with your body before you go to the doctor, the knowledge sitting in your gut, heavy and certain. "We are losing $12,000 a month on that location alone," Marcus said. "We can adjust the inventory strategy." We adjusted it in April, and in June. He sat down across from her without being invited. "Imani, the investors are circling. 2 of them have already had their lawyers send inquiries." She set the folder down. "We can stabilize this." "I do not think we can." His voice was flat, not angry, not concerned. Just flat in the way a voice goes flat when a person has already made a decision and is now simply delivering the result. "The board is meeting next Friday. They are looking for someone to hold responsible for the losses, and I have to be honest with you about where that conversation is going." She looked at him. "You are going to let them put this on me?" He said nothing. "Marcus, we built this together. You spent like we were already a billion-dollar company," he said. "The parties, the brand trips, the offices." He stood. "I warned you more than once." She felt the blood leave her face. "So you are walking away." He picked up his jacket from the back of the chair. "I am protecting what is left of my investment." He looked at her one final moment. "I am sorry it went this way." He left. The company collapsed over the next 6 weeks with a speed that felt almost purposeful. Investors withdrew. Creditors appeared. The boutique locations closed one by one. The mansion she had leased in Frisco was repossessed on a Thursday morning in November. She ended up in a small studio apartment in Garland, Texas. Second-hand couch, leaky faucet. One night, sitting alone in the dark with her phone, she scrolled back through years of photos without knowing exactly what she was looking for. Then she found it, Darius, smiling, holding her, young and full of hope and completely in love with her. She stared at that photo for a long time. The woman looking at it now had everything that woman had wanted, and had lost everything that woman had thrown away. She whispered to the empty room, "What did I do?" The design studio on McKinney Avenue in Dallas was the kind of space that communicated success without shouting about it. Clean lines, warm lighting, work on the walls that had real meaning because a real person with a real story had created it. The receptionist at the front desk was sharp and professional. The energy inside was focused and alive. Darius was at his standing desk, reviewing brand concepts for a new client, when his assistant appeared at the office door. "There is a woman here to see you," she said. "No appointment. She has been crying. She says she knows you personally." Darius did not look surprised. He set down the design brief slowly. "Send her in," he said. Imani walked through the door. She was barely recognizable, not because she had aged dramatically, but because everything that had made her hold herself with that particular sharpness, that upward tilt of the chin, that measuring gaze, that carefully curated confidence was gone. She wore simple clothes, no jewelry. Her eyes found him immediately and then dropped to the floor. She looked up again when she registered what she was seeing. Darius standing without a cane, shoulders back, calm, present, a man who had been entirely remade by the life she had pushed him toward without knowing it. "Kofi," she started, then caught herself. "Darius." "Amani," he said. Silence held the room for a long moment. She told him everything: the collapse, Marcus, the repossession, the studio apartment in Garland, 6 months of silence in a city that had stopped caring about her the moment her money disappeared. When she finished, she looked at him with eyes that had no more performance left in them. "I made the worst mistake of my life," she said. "Leaving you, throwing you out like you were nothing. I was blind and I was cruel, and I am so sorry, Darius." He was quiet for a moment, then he spoke. "Do you remember what you said when I asked where I was supposed to go?" She closed her eyes. "I said it was not my problem. I slept on a park bench that night, in the rain. A woman I had never met in my life came and gave me tea and a room and treated me like a human being. She saved my life." He paused. "Not you, a stranger." "I know," her voice broke. "I know what I did. I forgive you, Amani." Her face lifted. Hope moved across it like light. "But forgiveness is not an invitation back," he said. His voice was not cruel. It was final the way a healed wound is final, closed, sealed, no longer available to be reopened. "I built this life without you, not out of anger, out of necessity, and it became something beautiful." She pressed her hand to her mouth. "There is a women's resource center on Commerce Street," he said. "They help women rebuild after major life setbacks. My assistant will write down the address before you leave." "Darius, please. I truly hope you find your way forward." He walked around the desk. He opened the office door. He stood beside it. She walked toward the door slowly. At the threshold, she stopped and turned. "Are you happy?" she asked. He smiled, not with triumph, not with bitterness, with the quiet, settled peace of a man who had found his way through the longest and darkest season of his life and come out the other side intact. "Yes," he said, "I really am." She stepped into the hallway. He closed the door. He walked back to his desk and stood at the window, looking out over Dallas, the city that had watched him fall and rise and fall and rise again. His phone buzzed on the desk, a message from Miss Nadine. "Dinner tonight made your favorite." He picked up the phone and typed back without hesitation. "I would not miss it for anything in this world." He set the phone down. He looked back at the city. And the man who had once been thrown out with nothing but a suitcase and a cane stood in his own office, in his own life, and felt something so complete and so quiet that it needed no name at all. If you enjoyed this story, like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching.